I'm here with wonderful bassoonist Amy Harman, who features in Cantator and Amanda on my new album, Heartfelt. Amy, hello, thank you so much for sparing us the time today.
Hi, you're very welcome.
It's really lovely to see you. Now, we have a long-standing relationship, all of about 3 or 4 years. I actually first heard you play Cantator and Amanda at the Wigmore Hall with the Castilian Quartet. And then you did it in an orchestral version with the Royal Northern Symphonia. And here you are, just really completely at home by the sounds of things with it now, with the wonderful Sacconi Quartet. And it's such a treat to hear you, because it's a hugely theatrical and emotional piece. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone get the range of sounds and atmospheres out of the bassoon quite like you do.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's just, you write it like you are a bassoonist. That's why I always find amazing about this piece, is that lots of people don't know how to write for the bassoon, because it's quite a specific instrument. It's got lots of quirks and sort of some no-go areas and some areas that you really want celebrated. But so many composers that I love actually just kind of don't make the most of it. Like, I love Mahler, for instance, but the bassoon parts are terrible, you know, they're just awful. But the way you write, it's kind of like an Instagram filter, but for the bassoon. Like, it just makes everything a bit rose tinted, because it's all the registers that you want to play in and all the effects that you want to make, and I just love playing it, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can't take all the credit for that, because it was actually commissioned for bassoonist Julie Price originally 10 years ago. So so I had lots of sessions with her while I was writing it. But
Julie was actually one of my teachers,
okay.
which is actually one of the ways I found this piece, and I totally idolized her as a teenager. I was desperately trying to sound like her. I'd go to BBC Symphony Orchestra concerts and sort of study the way she played, because she's a really supreme player in every way. So, oh, that's interesting that you spent lots of time with her on it. It makes total sense, actually.
And it was really good, because actually I was really nervous about writing for bassoon and string quartet, and actually, you know, there's a sort of very stereotypical view of the bassoon as something that's low down. And in fact, in anticipation of our conversation today, I put a little post on Facebook, and I asked everybody, what do you think of when I say to you bassoon? And I got 183 comments.
Wow.
That's how deeply people feel about it. And the main ones, I mean, large proportion talked about the grandfather in Peter and the Wolf, and that very amazing high opening in The Rite of Spring. And there was some funny ones too. There was like someone called it the Loch Ness Monster of the woodwind section.
Oh, I like that.
Great, isn't it?
Emerging out of the depths.
Great. And somebody else said it's really spooky and scary.
Oh.
And somebody else said, which I didn't know this, and you can tell me if it's true, is that it's the only orchestral instrument for which you use every single digit, all your fingers and thumbs. Is that true?
Well, you certainly use every single digit, and I'm now thinking probably that is true. Flute, surely you'd use everything. Oh, that's so interesting. I'm going to have to research that.
Yeah.
But we have hundreds of keys, ridiculous numbers of keys, and on our thumbs, it's actually, you know, the thing of hitchhiker's thumb, when your thumb goes like that, it's actually very useful for the bassoon, because we have thumb keys all the way around the back, and you have to sort of slide across them. So if you've got a very straight, rigid thumb, you wouldn't stand a chance on the bassoon.
Fantastic. And one of my favorite ones was oh, I'm not sure, I've forgotten.
I've not heard that one before.
But no, seriously, I mean, you know, people do talk about it as sometimes as the clown of the orchestra, and I think that's really unfair. And my determination when I was writing Cantator and Amanda, which is about a doomed love story, it's actually a legend which comes from Rye down on the south coast, that happened in the 14th century. I really wanted to portray it as a very romantic and beautiful instrument, which it is, especially the way you play it. And the piece is about Cantator, who is a monk who had that name because apparently he had a beautiful singing voice, and a local girl called Amanda, which I've since discovered rather beautiful. A name means worthy of being loved.
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous. And so I decided that the bassoon would represent Amanda, which was the first sort of non-stereotypical decision. And we do start off quite high, but there's so much in that you can do in the tone and the ornamentation, and I wanted it to be really flirty, and you do that. How do you create that flirty Amanda?
I love a bit of drama musically, so this is why I think I'm particularly drawn to this piece. I love the story of it, you know, the tragedy and the depths of emotion and the journey that it takes you on, and the register that it starts in, that kind of tenor register we call it, which is sort of above middle C, and it's really where the instrument has its most soulful singing tone, and it's where a lot of very famous, very beautiful bassoon solos are written in that register. You know, Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, the end of the slow movement, is written exactly in that register, and it's very plaintive, and it's quite easy to manipulate the sounds in that register and get that, you know, romance and that flirtatiousness in the sound. And it's really fun to play Amanda, because, as you say, quite often we're typecast and we don't get to play those roles, and especially in things, we're quite often cast as the bear as well. In Strauss Concertino, it's about a bear and a princess, but the clarinet gets to be the princess and I have to be the bear. And I'm so often doing this piece with, you know, these middle-aged blokes who definitely looks like they should be the bear and I should be the princess, but I'm very pleased that we're doing it this way around with your piece.
Good.
And I love playing the heartbreak of it. I love how the end, which mimics what we've already heard at the beginning, which is full of hope, and the end is the sort of doomed version of it. It's so sad. It's so incredibly heartbreaking. And whenever I've performed it, audiences really, really connect with the story, and they really feel the emotion.
Oh, good. Because you do then, so Cantator and Amanda meet and they fall in love, and actually it's a forbidden love because he's a monk, and they decide to elope. And but in that lead up to that, in their relationship, you and Cantator, who's portrayed by the cello with a little bit of plain song to make him seem monkish, you do sort of dance around each other quite a lot, and I can quite see that actually choreographed. I would love to see a ballet choreographed.
Oh, so would I.
Yeah, but with you on stage, that would be amazing. Yeah. And but then so they decide to elope, and there's this moment of anticipation, and you're playing these little tiny clusters of notes, and you've got to sound breathless. And you don't have to try that hard to do that, do you, with a woodwind instrument? That's the wonderful thing about it. And then we have the escape where you're running, and I bet you're really pleased that you had all those ABRSM scales to practice for that one.
I certainly had to get my metronome out before recording it, that's for sure.
You throw them off with the greatest of ease. And then there's the terrible section where you're actually caught. You and Cantator are caught, and his punishment is to be bricked up alive in the walls of the abbey. And an opinion down in Rye is divided as to whether Amanda was bricked up with him or not. But I have not. And as you've said, as you mentioned earlier, we have a lament which takes your flirty, hopeful music at the beginning, which was accompanied by like a kind of sort of almost like a heartbeat rhythm on the strings. So that heartbeat rhythm becomes a terrible sob. And then you have to do all sorts of things. I ask you to wail, I ask you to be angry, you're having to sort of spit out notes. And is that hard to do? Is that?
It certainly takes a lot of effort. Like the cadenza that's written starts on that top E, which is sort of the highest note that is written for us within reason. There are exceptions, people do go higher, but that's generally the top that we do. But it's so great because it's such a scream, you know, that as a note is so effective and really screams out. And it's the bassoon actually is great for percussive effects and things like spitting things out and fury and attack. You know, it's really great to use in that way. I just think it's such a it's a kaleidoscopic instrument. You can really do anything on it, and I really like that you give me the opportunity to do that.
Well, you do it brilliantly, and it's such a treat to hear you, and it's so plaintive, and your tone, so when you're completely heartbroken at the end is just gorgeous. So thank you so much for letting me have that. And really interestingly, two of you on this CD had babies in your tummy while we were recording.
Yes.
And what was that? How pregnant were you? It was March.
I was 3 months when we recorded, 3 months pregnant, and I think the other expectant mum was a little bit less than that, but like quite close. Yeah. And it's a whole host of challenges playing a woodwind instrument whilst you're pregnant, because you're very quickly your lung capacity just goes and your lungs sort of become this big rather than this big, and also you're sort of breathless from your blood flow, and everything is just completely different. And you know, I was 3 months, so I was all very nauseous and I had to have loads of snacks around me when we were recording it. But it is a real challenge, and throughout both my pregnancies I've done lots of playing, and it really felt it. And then as soon as you are not pregnant and play, you feel like you've done like some amazing altitude training. You know how they have these runners from high altitude, because then when they come down to normal altitude everything feels easy, and that's a bit like playing after you've had a baby. It suddenly feels brilliant and you feel, you know, on top of the world. So it's definitely got its challenges, but what I think is really special is that I love that I'll have this CD that I can play to him, and he was there for it, even though, you know, probably couldn't hear that much at that point, but it's very special.
I'd be so interested to know. You must tell me what happens when you do, because yes. There was a piece that I wrote when I was pregnant with my first child, and I was working on it for several months while she was in my tummy. And she would kick quite a lot at certain parts. And so, of course, she was born. And when she was about 3 months old, I went to the rehearsal of this new piece, and I had to take her with me. And I was thinking, oh, what's she going to do? Is she going to show this kind of recognition on her face? And is she going to go off into some kind of dream? Is she going to recognize it? And like the first few notes started and she screamed.
Oh
no, not this again. So
she's probably like, I've had enough.
Exactly. We were all, and it was hysterically funny. I mean, she wasn't amused clearly, but we were. It was a lovely Sean Edwards conducting City of London, and it It was so funny, but I'd be intrigued to know if anything happens, whether your little lad recognizes anything, or it's soothing, or he screams. Will you let me know?
I will definitely. I think I have to film the first time I play it to him, just so we can see how he reacts. I'd be so pleased if he loved it. I hope he loves it. My daughter, funny enough, when I was pregnant with her, I played Marriage of Figaro, and she put a foot up in my ribs every time we played it, so I couldn't breathe, and I was in so much pain and could barely get a note out. And I thought, how strange, because nothing else, she didn't react very strongly to anything else. And then when I tried to play her some Mozart on the piano when she was a few months old, I absolutely hated it. She's still the only person that hates Mozart. She loves everything else. She just reacted so badly. It's so funny. They've got strong opinions.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's so lovely. Well, Amy, thank you so much for talking to me today. And it's really lovely to see you.
Lovely talking to you.